This is such a interesting and important phenomenon to recognize, and I call it the Great Wall of Everything Now. What having a lower level of executive function does is it makes it harder for us to prioritize and to organize and decide what is more important than the other thing. Because if you don't have that clarity, you won't be able to figure out what to focus on as well as you should. And if you're not able to figure out what you're focused on, then action becomes either tougher to get into or it doesn't actually move you forward. To solve the great wall of everything now, that everything is equally urgent, everything is equally important, there's so many ideas and they're all amazing and I don't know which one to work on first. Step back into where you want to go, your magnetic north. And that is the place that we want to be. Today, we're breaking down the great wall of everything now. For ADHD entrepreneurs, it's not just about having too many tasks, it's about how everything feels equally urgent. But this isn't a weakness, it's about finding focus amidst the chaos. So how do we tackle it without feeling overwhelmed? Let's dive in. Hey, it's Steve. Real quick before we begin. The single biggest thing I've learned about succeeding as an ADHD entrepreneur is that everything boils down to mastering your weeks. So if ADHD is making business harder than it needs to be, I've got something that can help. Grab my free weekly ADHD dashboard. It's a free, simple, but powerful tool to help you stay focused, organized, and in control of your week. The link is in the description below. Hey, Steve August here, ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator. Welcome back to another solo episode. Today, I want to talk about a phenomenon that a lot of ADHD entrepreneurs hit, and I call it the Great Wall of Everything Now. And what that means is we have so many ideas, so many tasks, so many to-dos on our list, and our brains are always flooding our, new ideas, new creative things, new things that are absolutely brilliant in as well. And we just have this huge growing wall of stuff to do. And it all feels equally urgent, all feels equally important. And we look at it and we say, oh my gosh, there's no way I can get all of this done. And it's all equally important and it's all urgent. And how am I ever going to do this? And then a lot of times we find ourselves just sliding into, let's avoid the whole mess. Right? Let's avoid the whole thing. And, when we get to a deadline or we have to react to something, then that'll at least prioritize that for the moment. And this is such a interesting and important phenomenon to recognize and understand why it's going on. And that way we can start thinking about strategies to start unstacking the great wall of everything now and figure out what our priorities are and figure out the sequence to put things in. So let's talk about a little bit like, why is that happening? And it comes back to ADHD being really an executive function deficit more than an attention deficit. ADHD brains don't have a deficit of attention. We have a surplus of attention. We pay attention to everything. It's all coming in and we're paying attention to what is going on outside of us. And we're paying attention to what our mind is constantly churning. Inputs are generating lots and lots of ideas, and we've got things that are stacking up. We've got things we want to do. We've got follow-ups that we need to do that we have to somehow keep track of. And we'll use all our different systems, whether it's Post-it notes or a planner or a Notion, or I use X-Tiles and my weekly dashboard, which helps out on this a lot. The thing that executive function, having a lower level of executive function does is makes it harder for us to prioritize and to organize and decide what is more important than the other thing. And there's two things that get an ADHD brain moving and in action and out of procrastination, and that is intense interest and intense consequences like deadlines and disappointing people, things like that. If we want to have a prioritization system to beat the great wall of everything now that isn't tied to just interest and consequences, we need to kind of approach it a little differently. Like, this is why I always talk about brain first. How does our brain work? And that's how we're going to approach stuff once we have that understanding. So in order for us to prioritize anything, we have to have a really good sense of where we're going. We have to have a direction. We have to have what I call a magnetic north. That is a reason for doing any of this or all of it. And not just that, but a way we want things to look. What do we want our life and our business to look like? Because we can do lots of different things, but we have that clearly in our minds. And the reason is, and not just in our minds, but in a place that we can reference, because we'll lose track of it if it's not in our minds. If it's just in our minds, because we have a deficit of working memory. And working memory keeps things that are out of sight in mind. So without it, out of sight, out of mind. And we can really easily be pulled off track by whatever shiny object or side quest or research rabbit hole or whatever it happens to be. So if we know where we're going, then that creates clarity, right? We need some clarity on what it is we're after and we want things to look like. And when we have that, we can hold all the things up in the Great Wall of now, everything now, and say, okay, does this get us closer? Is this the most important thing in getting us there? Or is there something else in this Great Wall of stuff that will move us forward? If we keep doing that, then we'll create the clarity. And so the clarity then turns into focus. Okay, now we know what to focus on. So then we can put things into different orders. Like, okay, we know that this particular item, like maybe redoing, right now I'm working on redoing my offer page for the ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator program. But it's not urgent that I do this. Like there's nothing that's like, there's no deadline other than one that I might self-impose. And I'm very interested in it, but there's lots of other things that are grabbing my attention as well that won't move me along. But this is like a really key thing I could be doing that will help me explain it better, will help me bring more people into it, and will help me have the impact I want to have on the world. When I know that, I can then stack up, okay, if that's the most important thing is redoing the landing page or rewriting that or making that more effective or taking all the video testimonials I've started to collect and putting them together, then I can start building that out into a project. I have the focus on that. And now I can say, okay, everything else in the Great Wall of now, maybe not as important, so I can sequence that later. But this is because it's going to get me where I want to go. I think it's the next piece. Now, sometimes I'm not sure exactly which is the next step. The thing is, I just got to decide on something because sometimes the act of deciding is doing, right? And when we decide and we get into action, that is when we start to learn, and that's when we start to make the progress, and that's when we start to be able to trust ourselves again. So the sequence is you have clarity, and that gives you focus. And when you're focused, you know what to do, or you know where at least to put your efforts in doing, and that helps you get into action. Clarity, focus, action. So we go from overwhelm on one side, because we've got this great wall of everything now, and once we do action, then we make progress, and progress leads to kind of the freedom of knowing that we've made progress and knowing that we can make progress. So to solve the great wall of everything now, that everything is equally urgent, everything is equally important, there's so many ideas and they're all amazing, and I don't know which one to work on first. Step back into where you want to go, your magnetic north. And that is the place that we want to be. And there's two components. There's a mission, kind of like what do you want, what's worth doing? And another way to look at it is the vision of what do you want it to look like? And this is the first thing that I teach in my weekly OS, with Build Your Weekly OS class. And it's also the first thing that we tackle in the Accelerator program as well. Because without this, it's the root of everything, right? Because if you don't have that clarity, you won't be able to figure out what to focus on as well as you should. And if you're not able to figure out what you're focused on, then action becomes either tougher to get into, or it doesn't actually move you forward. You do a lot of action that doesn't get you where you want to go. So just a quick little episode today, but if you are in front of the great wall of everything now, and you're thinking about it, go back and revisit why you're doing this in the first place, what's important to you, and what you want it to look like. With those two things, you can start to understand how to put things in order and start unstacking the great wall of now and making the progress you want to make in your business and in your life. So that's the quickie lesson for today. So glad you were with me, and hope you found it valuable. If you did, I would really appreciate you giving this episode a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice. If you're seeing this on YouTube, a like and a subscribe is always appreciated. This helps me spread the word and helps as many ADHD entrepreneurs as possible. So until next time, I'll see you soon.